Charlotte Ashford had attended more galas, boardroom dinners, and charity functions than she could count. Usually, she went because it was expected of her. As the head of Ashford Industries, appearances mattered. Her presence at a gala or fundraising event carried weight. Not because she enjoyed mingling, but because her company's name was tied to influence and reputation. But this wedding was different. Tonight, Charlotte wasn't here as a CEO making a statement, nor as the wealthy guest whose signature on a donation card might sway others. She was here for something far simpler and far more personal. Her college roommate, Jessica, the one friend who had never flinched during her hardest days, was getting married. At 34, Charlotte carried herself with the same grace she had always possessed. Her voice was calm, her manner composed, her intelligence sharp. What had changed in the past 3 years was not her essence, but her body. A skiing accident had left her with a spinal cord injury, and she now navigated the world from a wheelchair. The adjustment had been brutal at first. Independence had been her strength, and suddenly, every simple action came with challenges, stares, or well-meaning but clumsy sympathy. Over time, she had learned to move forward. Her sharp business mind never dulled, and Ashford Industries flourished under her leadership. Yet social gatherings were harder. She was tired of pitying glances, of conversations that faltered when people didn't know where to rest their eyes. Even when no one said anything, she felt the shift, the way her presence altered a room. That was why she had positioned herself at a table near the edge of the ballroom tonight. From there, she had a clear view of the festivities without being caught in the crush of movement. If she felt overwhelmed, she could easily excuse herself. Jessica had begged her to come, and Charlotte wanted to be here. Truly, she wanted to celebrate love. But as music swelled and laughter echoed from the dance floor, she felt the familiar tug of isolation, the sense that she was an observer, not a participant, in the kind of life she used to know. She sipped her champagne quietly, watching the blurred dresses and suits move in rhythm. That was when she noticed her, a little girl, no more than 4, in a purple dress that brushed her ankles. In her arms she clutched a stuffed bunny, its ears drooping from love and wear. The child's wide eyes scanned the crowd, her bottom lip quivering as though she had lost something precious. Or someone. Charlotte leaned slightly forward. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. The little girl turned toward her. Relief flickered across her tiny features. "I can't find my daddy," she said simply, with the matter-of-fact honesty only children could deliver. Charlotte's heart softened. "What does your daddy look like?" she asked, glancing around for anyone frantically searching. "He's very tall," the girl replied earnestly, "and he has dark hair, and he wears the same suit as all the other daddies here." Charlotte smiled. Half the men in the ballroom fit that description. "Well then," she said, "why don't we look for him together? My name is Charlotte. What's yours?" "Lily," the girl answered, her small hand tightening around the bunny. Then, with childish certainty, she added, "And my daddy is the best daddy in the whole world." Charlotte's chest warmed at the conviction in Lily's voice. Before she could say more, a tall man hurried toward them, scanning the room with anxious eyes until they landed on his daughter. Relief flooded his face. "Lily," he said, kneeling down quickly. "There you are. I was looking everywhere for you." The little girl threw her arms around his neck, then pulled back proudly. "Daddy, this is Charlotte. She was helping me find you because I got lost." The man, Michael Torres, as he introduced himself, lifted his gaze to Charlotte. Gratitude shone in his eyes, not laced with awkwardness or discomfort, but simple sincerity. "Thank you so much for staying with her. I can't tell you how grateful I am." Charlotte found herself studying him. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, his dark hair neatly styled, his posture relaxed but attentive. What struck her most wasn't his appearance, but the way he looked at her, directly at her face, not darting away toward her wheelchair or fidgeting with discomfort. "It was my pleasure," Charlotte replied evenly. "Lily is delightful company." Michael smiled. "She's certainly spirited." He explained that he was attending the wedding alone with his daughter after their babysitter had canceled at the last minute. He worked as a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital. Suddenly, his patience and natural ease with Lily made perfect sense. Lily climbed onto the chair beside Charlotte, chattering comfortably as though they were old friends. Charlotte marveled at how quickly the child trusted her, how unbothered she seemed by the wheelchair that so often drew adult hesitation. "I hope you don't mind me saying," Michael said after a moment, "but you handled that situation with Lily perfectly. Most people would have sent her to a coordinator. You actually listened to her." Charlotte tilted her head. "Most people assume children and wheelchairs don't mix well. But I've always liked talking with kids. They see things clearly. No pretenses." Michael's smile deepened. "That's true. In my work, I see how naturally children adapt. It's the adults who tend to struggle with differences." The sincerity of the observation touched her. As the evening stretched on, Charlotte found herself pulled into conversation with both Michael and Lily. The little girl's curiosity was endless. She asked about Charlotte's chair, about whether it was fast, whether it could spin, whether she could try pushing it. The questions were direct, but not unkind. And for once, Charlotte didn't feel like a spectacle. She felt like herself, simply answering an inquisitive child. Then Lily's eyes sparkled with sudden inspiration. "Can I push you to the dance floor?" she asked, bouncing with excitement. "I think you and Daddy should dance together." Charlotte's eyes widened. She hadn't danced since before her accident. The idea felt terrifying, impossible. Yet Michael's cheeks flushed slightly as he glanced at her. "Lily," he murmured, "not everyone likes to dance." Charlotte surprised even herself with her next words. "Actually, I'd love to try." Her voice trembled slightly, but her resolve steadied it. "I haven't danced since my accident, but I've been curious if it was possible." Michael's expression shifted instantly to one of encouragement. "Then let's figure out together," he said warmly. "If you're willing, I am." Charlotte's pulse quickened. The thought of maneuvering her chair on the dance floor in front of dozens of people filled her with nerves. But the sincerity in Michael's eyes calmed her. What followed was unlike any dance she had ever known. Michael adapted easily, guiding their movements with instinctive gentleness. He didn't push or control. He moved with her, finding rhythms that complemented her chair's motions. They spun slowly, the music wrapping around them, and to Charlotte's astonishment, it felt graceful. "Free!" Lily clapped her hands and shouted encouragement, declared herself their dance teacher. Other guests turned to watch, but instead of pity in their expressions, Charlotte saw admiration, respect, joy. For the first time in years, she felt part of the celebration, not as someone to be managed or excused, but as a woman fully present in the moment. And it was because Michael hadn't hesitated. By the time the song ended, Charlotte's cheeks ached from smiling. As the evening wound down, Michael approached her once more, his voice carrying a hint of nervousness. "Charlotte," he said carefully, "I know this might seem forward, but would you be interested in having dinner with me sometime? Not as a thank you for helping Lily, but because I've genuinely enjoyed talking with you tonight." Charlotte looked at him, the man who had made her feel visible, desirable, interesting, the man who hadn't flinched at her chair or her vulnerability. "I'd like that very much," she said softly. And in that moment, something shifted. Michael and Charlotte's love story blossomed with the kind of quiet strength that comes from shared respect and genuine admiration. Their first few dinners together were not the stereotypical whirlwind romances of dramatic confessions and reckless impulses. Instead, they were evenings filled with thoughtful conversation, laughter that came easily, and silences that felt comfortable rather than strained. Charlotte found herself surprised at how natural it felt to be with Michael. For years, she had kept her heart guarded, wary of the pitying glances and the patronizing tone she endured too often after her accident. Many men had admired her success as CEO of Ashford Industries, but fewer had cared to see the woman behind the title. With Michael, however, she was never the woman in the wheelchair or the powerful executive. She was simply Charlotte, someone whose company he genuinely enjoyed. Lily, of course, became an inseparable part of their time together. The little girl had taken an immediate liking to Charlotte, perhaps sensing the warmth and patience that mirrored her own father's. On weekends, Charlotte would often invite them both to her home. She had a spacious garden she had designed for accessibility, with winding paths lined with lavender and roses, places where she could move easily in her chair while still enjoying nature. Lily loved to run down the pathways with her stuffed animals, occasionally stopping to teach Charlotte about imaginary kingdoms and fairy tales she invented on the spot. Michael admired the way Charlotte encouraged Lily's creativity. "You always listen to her as though her stories are the most important thing in the world," he once remarked softly. "They are the most important thing," Charlotte replied. Children's voices deserve to be heard, especially by adults who care. That was the moment Michael realized just how deeply he was falling for her. She was not only intelligent and beautiful, but she had a heart that instinctively knew how to nurture and empower others. Their relationship grew steadily, built on trust rather than haste. Charlotte met Michael's friend from the hospital, who welcomed her warmly. Michael, in turn, was introduced to some of Charlotte's colleagues, who were astonished to see her genuinely relaxed in his presence. For years, Charlotte had maintained a polished but guarded demeanor at social events. Now, with Michael by her side, she laughed freely and allowed herself to be vulnerable in ways she had not thought possible. One evening, 8 months after they had first met at Jessica's wedding, Michael decided to share his feelings. The setting was Charlotte's garden, glowing in the soft amber sunset. Lily was asleep upstairs after an afternoon of playing fairy princess with Charlotte. "I've been wanting to tell you something," Michael began, his voice carrying both nerves and certainty. He reached for her hand, gently holding it as if it were the most natural gesture in the world. "Charlotte, I love you. I love your intelligence, your kindness, and your strength. You using a wheelchair. It's only one detail about you, not who you are. To me, you're the most remarkable woman I've ever known." Charlotte felt tears sting her eyes. For so long, she had wondered if anyone would see her for more than her injury, her position, or the assumptions people made about her. Yet here was a man who saw her whole, who valued her without condition. "I love you, too," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "And I love how you and Lily have shown me that my life is not limited by what others expect. You reminded me that joy is still possible, real joy." From then on, their bond deepened even further. Michael and Charlotte became inseparable, balancing the demands of her corporate responsibilities with his shifts at the hospital. Their schedules were hectic, but somehow they always found time for each other. Often, it was the smallest moments, sharing coffee before dawn, reading bedtime stories with Lily, or planting flowers together, that meant the most. 2 years later, in a gesture that felt beautifully full circle, they chose to marry in the very same ballroom where they had first met. Charlotte wore a custom gown designed to complement her, whether she was seated in her chair or standing with Michael's support during parts of the ceremony. Lily, radiant in another purple dress, scattered petals down the aisle as their flower girl. When Charlotte and Michael took to the dance floor, the crowd fell silent in admiration. The movements were simple yet graceful, just as they had been that very first night. Lily spun joyfully nearby, giggling at her self-appointed role as dance instructor. Charlotte, looking into Michael's eyes, marveled at the unexpected turn her life had taken, from a chance meeting with a lost little girl to this moment of profound happiness. Everything had unfolded in a way she could never have planned. For the first time since her accident, she felt not just accepted but celebrated for exactly who she was. As the music swelled, Michael leaned down and whispered, "I told you we'd figure out how to dance." Charlotte smiled, her heart full. "Yes," she said softly, "and we'll keep figuring it out together." Sometimes the most beautiful love stories don't arrive with fanfare or perfection. They appear in moments of vulnerability, in places where we least expect them. Charlotte had come to Jessica's wedding prepared to feel invisible, but instead, she had found a man who saw her completely. And in doing so, she discovered that love, true love, was not hindered by circumstance, but strengthened by it. As husband and wife, with Lily twirling nearby, Charlotte realized that what had once felt like the end of one life was actually the beginning of another, a fuller, richer, more beautiful life than she had ever dared to imagine.